Okay, Ghamidi Sahab, let us move to a new doubt that people usually voice out. There are some rulings in the Quran, such as there are punishments mentioned in the Quran, for example, cutting off the hand of a thief, which people say seem utterly barbaric. How could God have given this kind of punishment? A person commits theft, but we cut his hands to make him disabled. Or when the question of nushuz, meaning rebellion, occurs, then the Quran mentions that man can beat her, whereas the same is not applicable in the opposite case. Similarly, plurality of spouses, polygamy being allowed for men but not women, these are issues that some people find problematic. They think, how could God allow such harsh punishments? So if God has all the attributes that the Quran claims and you are narrating, how can all these rulings exist?
I will first say that when you read any point or text, you must consider the system of thought behind it. The punishments mentioned in the Quran are not meant to be worldly punishments in the way they are implemented in legal systems. The Quran does not state these punishments to fulfill the objectives of the law, such as the protection of society, financial security, or the prevention of harm or lineage, etc. God has given humanity the intellect to create laws and systems for their own protection. The punishments mentioned in the Quran are not for those purposes. The Quran has clearly stated that on the Day of Judgment, God will deal with the believers according to a specific system of reckoning. This is not related to worldly laws. If someone does not believe in this system of accountability, they are free to create their own system of justice. Any society can choose to enact its system of laws on the basis of reason and necessity. They can argue and come to consensus on the legal and penal system that they wish to impose. However, the rulings that you are speaking about are those which result as a result of entering a covenant of obedience to God. Once we enter into a covenant with God Almighty, certain relationships entail. The violation of the terms of these relationships leads to some consequences. Their reckoning will occur in the hereafter. If a person commits a crime in this world, whether it is theft, fornication, or murder, the punishment will be dealt with by God on the Day of Judgment. The worldly punishments are simply symbols of this divine retribution. This is the wrath of God. It has no relation with the aims of worldly punishment. So, if a human being does not believe in God, is not tied to this covenant of obedience, then a society of such individuals can decode upon whichever punishment they choose to in this world. Whereas, this is for me. I have entered into a covenant with God. About hellfire also, I have been told that if I choose polytheism as a way of life, or will make sin as a way of life, or will take the life of another human being, then there is eternal hellfire for such a person. This is the reward and punishment from my Lord. When it is compared to worldly rewards and punishments, you will of course be amazed. You will notice, just ponder, during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when some people came forward confessing their crimes, what did they say? Purify me, O Messenger of God. This believer, to escape the punishment of the Day of Judgment, voluntarily accepts this punishment in the world. This is a manifestation of God's punishment for the people of faith. See how it is described in the context of the punishment for disobedience, nushuz. Because the first question arises there, jaza'an bima kasaba, recompense for what they have earned. Naka'ala min Allah, this is from God. When you compare these punishments with worldly punishments, questions will arise. So, if you want to compare it with God's punishment, then He is also describing the horrors of hell, where there are severe punishments, where there is only pus to drink, where torment continues. This is nothing in comparison to that. When you compare it to that, it is not like this. The second thing was about marriage. In order to implement God's scheme, He has ordained this. What is God's scheme? To create humans and ensure their survival. This is God's scheme. For this, the bond of marriage was established. In this bond of marriage, it was decided that responsibilities would be divided. So the Quran says that if the man has taken the responsibility of expenses, the responsibility of livelihood, then he is the head. And as the head, the question of reward and punishment arises. That is, the attitude of obedience should be adopted towards the head. It should always be adopted. There is no question of any excuse in this. Wherever there is an order, there will be reward and punishment. So this punished has been described. People completely misunderstand it, thinking that in the matter of nushuz, some domestic violence has been allowed. Not at all. It has been described that if this matter arises, then nushuz is a crime. If the child disobeys the father, it is a crime. If the student disobeys the teacher, it is a crime. Crime is always punishable. It has been described that to give this punishment, what steps must be taken. So the 3 steps have been described in it. If this need is felt, then that punishment will also be given. First, see it in the context of God's scheme. When you see it in the context of worldly contracts, it does not make sense. I have always said that women should take responsibility and become the head of the household. If men are ready to accept this, then this is actually based on rationality, based on a command. Whoever has taken the responsibility of livelihood will be the head. And whoever is the head, the attitude of obedience should be adopted towards him. What is the opposite of obedience? Rebellion. If there is nushuz or rebellion, it will be punishable. This is a very simple matter, said in the context of its system of thought. When you establish institutions, you have established the institution of the state. After establishing the institution of the state, have you placed any punishment for rebellion against the state or not? If there is a system of giving punishments there, and the developed countries of the world have shut down prisons, then please tell me. Even now you are dropping daisy cutter bombs on humans to punish them for rebellion. If the institutions of the world have abolished the matter of reward and punishment, then the institutions created by God should not exist. And if this is not the case, then this institution of marriage, which God has created for the survival of the species, has a sacred status. The arrangement made in it is based on a rationale, based on cause. As soon as the woman takes the responsibility, she is the head. She will have the same authority. And if the man has taken that responsibility, then he must have that authority. Now for the question, why can't women marry more? Obviously, it is based on the same principle. An institution has been created. In it there is love, chastity, loyalty. This is the need of the child. God stands with the child and ensures its protection to the highest degree. There is no question that the one in whose womb the child is nurtured, and through whom its lineage is determined, and in whose lap it is to be raised, and from whose breasts it is to drink milk, would in any manner become involved with another individual and disrupt the system of its upbringing. How can this be? So understand his words in the context of his system of thought. If someone does not accept this system of thought, he has the right to adopt another system of thought, but criticism of something is always done after first understanding that system of thought. I have made commitments to you that the Quran views this matter from here and views it absolutely correctly.
You said that this is the punishment for nushuz. So it seems that the individual does not have the authority. It is informed that he will have to take it to some authority. This matter of beating, it is as a punishment, because in this verse it does not seem so. It addresses the man, saying men are the protectors and maintainers of women, and if you fear nushuz, then admonish them and abandon them in beds and beat them. So the order is like this. That is, if it happens that my wife is guilty of nushuz, then I can beat her myself. You will agree with this, right?
All punishments have been given by society. That is, the civilization that existed before. The Quran is not the book of today's civilization. It covers all eras of human civilization. You are aware of this. Now see, I give you an example. In Surah Bani Israel, when the social system of Muslims was not established in the form of a state, they were in Mecca. What did the Quran say about killing? That if a person's relative is killed, we have given his guardian the authority to take revenge. And it is said that society will help him. Masters punish slaves, Parents punished children, teachers punished students, and husbands punished wives. This is where punishment originated. Now, when you have established an organized state, the question arises, what to do in this matter, which in tribal civilization, society was very small and could control. Now what to do? So we have transferred all these things to the state. So see, from my childhood until now, the change that has come, now teachers have been stopped from this. In Western society, parents have been stopped from this. I have written in my book, Maqamat, read it. We can also stop the husband from this. But when the Quran describes it, it will describe it in its original form. As you see, it will describe the matter of killing. The Quran should first be understood. From where is it speaking? The origin of human civilization must be from the relationship between husband and wife, child and parent, and master and slave, which are actually found there. You will start from there. Similarly with teacher and student, now you have organized the state, so these things have been transferred to the state. So it is like this, not that the state is addressed there. No, the husband is addressed there. Similarly, the guardian is addressed there. In Surah Bani Israel, it is said to him. But see, when the state came into existence, what lesson did the Quran take? Now, the words have changed. Kutiba alaykum al-qasas fil qatla, prescribed for you is retribution in cases of murder. Now it is said to society that it will take the retribution of the murdered. So the correct order is that all matters of reward and punishment will be in a natural manner. They will remain so because even now within the world, in thousands of places, civilization is in this form. But if the state system is established somewhere, then these matters can be entrusted to it. The Quran itself has clarified this in the matter of killing, that this is what should be done. We can also do it.
So Ghamidi Sahib, now when rebellion is from the husband's side, then there, God's command completely changes.
The reason for this is that it changes as it changes in the state system. That is, a constable has the right to stop me and fine me. I do not have the right. First, you must accept that marriage is an institution. In this institution, a person is made the head. Where did the Quran start its discussion? It said that since the husbands have taken this responsibility, therefore they are the maintainers. In the matter of maintainers, the established principle is that there should be obedience. The punishment is for disobedience. So, the meaning of nushuz of the husband is not that. There, nushuz means hatred. This word is used in two meanings. That is, if it is felt that the husband has come to the point of aversion, he is now feeling hatred. So now, how should a woman deal with this matter? Exactly like this, as when I go to an institution, if I have to leave the job, I will give notice of resignation. And if the owner has to terminate my job, he will give me the termination notice. So you are not seeing the home as an institution. That is why this question arises, that equality should be established in this matter. Show equality in all institutions, then show it in the state. Wherever an institution is established, there will be hierarchy. And where there is hierarchy, rights and authorities will change.
Thank you very much, Ghamidi Sahib. Okay, Ghamidi Sahib, your understanding of religion, the principles you have explained with great clarity and detail, and the answers to all the objections raised on it. So in this, with regard to your concept of Sunnah and Hadith, I am not going into that. I want to ask you this, that in the principles of religion that you have explained, where you describe human nature, you describe fitrat. So while reading, I felt at the beginning as if you are using it in the meaning of intellect, and sometimes it seemed that no, it is in some meaning beyond intellect. So I want a little clarification on this, what is meant by nature there.
I use the word nature in exactly the same meaning in which the Quran has used it. Fitratullah alati fatara nasa alayha, the nature of God upon which He has created mankind, in Surah Rum. The Quran itself has described this whole matter, that God has created nature, so follow it, live according to it. And it is said that this is the straight religion. The Quran itself has described all this. What is nature? When you create something, the characteristics that are in it are called nature in the terminology of the Quran. If I have made a car, what is it? It is something that runs on the road. It works like this. This is called the nature of the car. The nature of man is the human characteristics. As we see, man has a moral sense, which gives moral judgments about things. He has an aesthetic sense, which gives judgments about beauty and ugliness. Similarly, we find many other things in man which are also under this, such as eating, drinking, sexual desire. All this is human nature. Nature is the description of human analysis. Intellect is the faculty that reads this book of nature. That is, it reads it and tells me, this is your nature. Nature is one thing, intellect is another. I have already explained about intellect, how it works. That is, how things come before it, and how it then turns them into perception, perception into knowledge, and then from the known to the unknown. The work of intellect is this. For it, there are completely different paths. Nature is actually the book that you have to read. That is my personality, my existence. What are its characteristics? This is called nature.
Okay, Ghamdi Sahib, in this, as you are presenting the verse of Surah Rum, فَأَقِيمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّيمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So direct your face toward the religion, inclining to truth. Adhere to the fitra of God upon which He has created all people. No change should there be in the creation of God. That is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know. Now, in this verse, the word fitrat Allah, nature of God, has come. Among our ancient commentators, there is also a difference of opinion about what is meant by it. Even in modern times, when we read the commentary of Ustad Islahi Sahib, in it he has written that here fitrat Allah means monotheism. That which you described does not all of that come into it. That is only Tawheed, which is present in man. And you have also probably written in the commentary like this, but when you describe it in the principles and foundations of religion, it holds it exactly as it is, as if it is a complete entity. I will also have a couple more questions on this regarding your concept of nature. Here in this verse, it is not just about the declaration of Tawheed, monotheism. Here, the entire characteristics of humanity are presented in the context of Tawheed.
In this verse, there is a general statement, which also contains within pointers towards its specifics. That is, it is explained that monotheism should always be kept in mind. Polytheism is against human nature, and one should follow nature. It is like saying that humans are inherently good, so one should only speak of goodness and prosperity. Now, the word good that is used here is not used in the sense of Tawheed or in the sense of goodness and prosperity. That is, it is a statement that is a result, and by keeping it in front, it points towards a generalization. For example, we say that you should treat other humans well because you are human, not an animal. Here, see, the word human that we have used is a description of all humanity, but the thing that was intended here to be highlighted was one thing. So, there the declaration of Tawheed has been made from this perspective. That is, the Quran has declared Tawheed as nature, and then explained that what God has made your nature, this is also its demand, and in every matter, this nature should be followed. There should be no change, even in the slightest degree in it. La tabdila li khalqillah. There is no change in the creation of God. So, in my view, the verse explains it in this way.
This la tabdila li khalqillah is not in the sense of negation or a factual statement that such a thing does not change in God's nature.
No, it is in the sense of negation. This law here expresses negation. It should not be like this. A command has been given above, and then it is said that there should be no change, even in the slightest degree.
Okay, Ghamidi Sahab, now when you describe things which are either permissible and prohibited in the context of nature, especially in the context of eating and drinking, say the prohibition of certain animals, it seems to us that your focus is not on humanity in a collective sense, but only on Muslims. There, you think that according to their nature, some things that are common in the East and West, things which are accepted by the Abrahamic religions. Because when we look at China, Japan, Korea, in these great civilizations where billions of people still exist, and since humans have existed and will continue to exist, these people eat and drink without any hesitation. All that you have said is not within human nature to consume. So, what is this? Do you only consider Muslims to have a sound nature?
No, it is not like that. That is, the general taste of humans has been described and explained that God has placed in them the distinction between pure and impure. I have lived among the Chinese for 10 years, and this statement is not correct about them either. They are just like us. They consider all these things as pure and eat them. Among them, there is no aversion to some things that we have. It is not that for them it is considered disgusting. So, what is the general taste of humans around the world in eating and drinking? By describing this, I have explained that since humans can also make mistakes in this determination, and sometimes due to habits and customs, they go astray. The prophets, peace be upon them, have guided them. That is, nature has not been described in such a way that it becomes decisive. It has been explained that when the Quran addressed, what approach did the Quran take? That is, among its addressees, human nature, which itself was making the distinction between pure and impure, was not made the subject. It left it to the taste of the addressees and corrected them where they were making mistakes. So, this matter has been explained in this way. That is, humanity is not under discussion in this regard. By pointing towards a general taste that everywhere humans distinguish between pure and impure in eating and drinking, some things are absolutely bad. Now, where in the world are there people who are ready to eat feces? So, the distinction between tayyib and khabith exists. Now, this distinction has been described in terms of all humanity, what is pure and what is impure. There are many differences in this. The Quran's addressees, the Quran, wanted to separate things into pure and impure, regarding which they themselves automatically accepted. Based on this, it only made those things the subject where there was some confusion. That is, the Quran is starting its discussion from here, that my addressees understand the things they understand, and where they might make a mistake, it is correcting them. So, see, as I have previously mentioned, when people read a book, they do not consider two things. That is, they have their own concepts, and then they want the book to describe things according to their concepts. First, one should understand the Quran's system of thought completely. It will describe things within its own system of thought, addressing its own audience. So, what I have written is that generally, humans distinguish between pure and impure in many things. This is the existence of the distinction between pure and impure in human nature. Where should it exist? What distinctions should be made in which things? Obviously, due to their backgrounds, differences arise among humans because of their background and history. The Quran's addressees, what distinction had they established? The Quran did not feel the need to describe it. Where there was confusion, it clarified it. So now, what is the second thing? That whenever you want to understand something in the Quran, first determine its addressees. It will speak considering them. What the addressees know and understand, it will confirm it. It will not start other discussions about it. So, if you keep these two things in mind, my point will be easily understood.
So, Ghamidi Sahib, it seems that the Quran is not a universal guidance from God for humanity, it is only according to the addressees. And secondly, will you tell me that if someone eats things that you have said are against nature, has their nature as a result been distorted?
Nature gets distorted in many matters. Nature is not instinct. That is, in nature, there are many things. I have been given a moral sense. I daily see in my country people lying, being dishonest, stealing, looting people's wealth, lying confidently. What has happened? Nature has been distorted. And what has happened? In all moral matters, this situation arises. Nature gets distorted. What you have said is that the Quran is not a universal book. Universal principles exist, so do the rationale behind things. What is the principle? That tayyibat, pure things, are halal, and kabaith, impure things, are haram. This is the rule. Now, what are tayyibat according to some, and what are they according to others? There will be differences here. The prophets resolved these differences. It has been resolved correctly.
So, Ghamidi Sahib, please say something about this concept in psychology and philosophy, especially this discussion is about taste, that nature is not a thing in itself. It arises from environment and education. You do not seem to give weight to this. You say that such a thing is inscribed in humans by God.
This is the same discussion that has happened before. That is, when we make a judgment about something, has this judgment been made scientifically? We studied 2,000 years of human history in front of us. Based on this, have we established an opinion? Has human nature been opened and examined? Has it been confirmed that it is indeed a blank slate or tabula rasa? Obviously, this is itself an estimation. So, just as an estimation has been made about human history, similarly, an estimation has also been made here. If this is some definitive evidence, then please present its proofs. And if this is an estimation, then I will say that I have the Book of God with me. And since I believe with evidence that it is the Book of God, God Himself has informed me that you were not created as a blank slate. I have inspired good and evil in you. I have created a nature in you, and according to this nature, I have given you the complete religion.
Correct. Ghamidi Sahib, the Quran has given an example. It has said that if a Muslim or a believer of this book eats any of these things, then in the view of religion, we say that he has acted against the command of God and has become deserving of punishment, and God will punish him. So if someone acts against human nature, for example, starts eating dog meat or donkey meat, then in this case, will he also be deserving of God's punishment in the same way? Will God hold him accountable for this sin? Because although I did not declare this thing prohibited in the Quran, but since it was made prohibited in nature, you acted against nature. That is, will acting against nature be viewed in the same way as acting against Sharia?
This is not just acting against nature. The Quran has clarified that only cattle of the grazing kind are permissible, and the rest are all predators, and thus haram. The Quran has explained this statement. People have completely misunderstood it. There, what is being discussed are mujtabihat. The Quran, in Surah An'am, has started its discussion from here. All pure things are permissible, and all impure things are prohibited. And since there could be a discussion related to animals, it has given its verdict that only cattle of the grazing kind, which you call grass-eating animals, are permissible, and the rest, which have fangs and are predators, are excluded based on uhilat lakum bihimatul an'am. What are lawful for you are the cattle, and the Messenger of God has also clarified it. Therefore, everywhere regarding animals, the same principle will apply, that grazing animals are completely permissible and predators are completely prohibited.
Right. So now this is Sharia, which you have been describing as nature. That is, since religion has described it and explained it, now this is Sharia, and acting against it is a sin, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. When we read our theological and jurisprudential schools from the beginning until now, the discussion about the sources of religion, the sources of Sharia in Kalam theology, when we read that the sources of the principles of religion, such as monotheism and the knowledge of good and bad, are human intellect, the Mu'tazila accept it, the Imamis accept it, the Zaydis also mostly accept it, the Ash'aris also accept it, though perhaps with a bit less intensity, and the rest, the tradition of the scholars of Hadith, do not accept it. They say, no, intellect is not a source, only revelation is the source. So, in this context, we consider intellect as a source of religion. Secondly, when we go to jurisprudence, in that, for example, in the Hanafi school, the sources are the Quran, Sunnah, analogical reasoning, and consensus. In the Shia school, the sources are the Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and intellect. That is, they are strongly against Qiyas. So, how do you view this? And you yourself, do you also describe the Sunnah along with the Quran? So, in your view, in the principles of religion and in the branches of religion, what is the status of intellect? That is, to what extent can it be a source?
No, regarding intellect, why would I say that? In my view, religion has been placed in nature. Intellect will read it, just as it reads the Quran. That is, when I read the book of God, if my intellect is suspended, I cannot understand it. It is the faculty that has to do the work of understanding and explaining. It reads the book of nature and also the book revealed by God. Therefore, there is no need to mention it. If it is not there, then there is nothing. When sources or references are mentioned, the first is human nature. God has placed his religion in human nature, which can be read by intellect. That was in abstract. Then God established the chain of prophethood and explained its details. He sent prophets to remind them. The last prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, has the status of the messenger of God. Now, the religion is what he has conveyed through his words and actions and through his commands and prohibitions.
So, Ghamidi Sahib, this discussion about intellect that takes place in our theological and jurisprudential tradition, particularly in the field of principles of jurisprudence, what was then the reason for that? Was that a confusion?
I have clarified that there are differences in how people understand these matters, and these differences manifest in their knowledge and reasoning as well. I attribute this status to intellect. In my view, intellect is the faculty through which I interpret both my inner self and the external world. The world before me consists of the consciousness and matter, and when I analyze it, I encounter manifestations of power. I refer to one aspect as name and the other as action. This constitutes my entire universe. So, who is responsible for interpreting it? That faculty is the intellect. Intellect is what reads the book of nature and God's book also, and understands the Sunnah as well. Therefore, if it is to be used, it must be used correctly. I have always used it in this manner. In my books, such as Meezan or Al-Bayan, you will not find any instance where intellect is considered the source. Rather, the source is either nature or God's Sharia.
So, Ghamidi Sahib, you have beautifully explained that intellect is merely a faculty of understanding, whereas philosophers elevate it to something much greater, and they use it as a source for all matters of good and evil, understanding the world, and even matters of faith beyond this world. In this regard, you differ from philosophers.
I believe that the role of intellect has been misunderstood. A means has been elevated to a source.
So even the greatest minds have failed to clarify this.
If you ever get the chance to meet them, you should ask them about it. In my view, God's book has provided guidance, and I reiterate that the entire issue arises from people contemplating the universe, studying both the soul and matter without any limits, or the illuminating book, God's revelation. For me, God's book is both a guide and an illuminated book. It has provided answers to these things, and once it has done so, everything becomes clear. What I have presented to you contains nothing that I have derived from inspiration. It is all clearly stated in God's book. Nature is a source, and the Quran has explained it. Intellect as a faculty makes judgments, issues rulings, and interprets things and helps obtain knowledge. The Quran has elaborated on this in various places. If you look at it in the light of the Quran, all these discussions will lead you to God's decree. I will only consider something worthy of agreement when it becomes a reality. Speculations, imaginations, and logical necessities are not sufficient. Something must be witnessed, experienced, and aligned with the three fundamental aspects embedded in my consciousness. Only then is it worthy of acceptance.
So you do not believe that human intellect has the capacity to arrive at conclusions or answer questions without any material or external input, without relying on the senses. In this sense, you do not accept intellect as an independent source.
This is not possible. The door to knowledge is through the senses, both external and internal. I study the soul through my internal senses and the external universe through my external senses. In my view, knowledge begins with sensory perception. Whatever emerges in the form of understanding or comprehension is first processed into knowledge by the intellect. After that, I journey from the known to the unknown through reasoning, inference, or extraction. Therefore, in my view, the path to knowledge is plain and straightforward. Any other path taken is, in essence, a deviation. True knowledge, in my opinion, is that which originates from sensory perception, whether external or internal. What appears before you is the soul and matter in the form of manifestations of power. This is where knowledge begins.
So it appears, Ghamdi Sahab, that all these other thinkers have engaged in Rajmam bil Ghaib.
If I were to adopt another interpretation, it would be that they have entered this field without guidance or the illuminated book Revelation.
Right, or one might say that they are basically engaged in frivolous speculations and nonsensical guesses.
You know that I naturally avoid using harsh words.
Okay, Ghamdi Sahib, when your principle of Itmam al-Hujjah or completion of argument is fully explained, it is done so with great clarity. In your commentary, as well as in Maulana Islahi's commentary, many misunderstandings we had about the understanding of religion have been clarified. However, there is an issue, Ghamdi Sahib, that when we present the principle of Itmam al-Hujjah in this manner, it seems as if more than half of the Quran is no longer relevant for guidance, but is merely read for blessings or as history. It appears that it doesn't have any guidance or connect with human beings. Doesn't this go beyond even the issue of abrogation?
Please show me with an enumerated list as to what has been removed. Have the acts of worship been removed? Have the social rulings been removed? Have the political, economic, and invitation-related guidance been removed? Nothing has been removed. The issue of jihad and fighting, which the Prophet, peace be upon him, carried out based on certain principles, has been clarified. I have explained how it remains a command in religion. It has been stated that jihad and fighting after the Prophet are only against oppression and aggression. Please tell me, is it true that what people generally describe as religion, acts of worship, social rulings, customs, political and economic rulings, dawat and jihad, have all these been removed?
Well, for example, there are things mentioned with regard to disbelievers, such as how to deal with them, and the moral failings described of the polytheists in the Meccan verses. But now it seems as if these no longer apply because the Prophet, peace be upon him, completed the argument with them. However, for us, it feels as if the argument has not been completed with the disbelievers of today. So it is in this sense that I am telling this. And of course, there are many connected issues with regard to jihad.
I want to know, for example, what specific evil have I not attributed to them? Disbelief still exists. Polytheism still exists. Please tell me, have I singled out any evil with them? What I have specified is that God punished them in this world for their evils. So in this world, there is punishment for them, and in the hereafter, there is punishment for others. I have not denied anything. Please tell me, what have I changed about the definition of polytheism? The polytheism that existed among them has been clearly described in my book as it is. You can see it there. The definition of polytheism is given. Then tell me one thing that has remained, the one thing that has persisted. If you carefully consider it, it is only one thing, and that is how God deals with rewards and punishments in this world. Apart from that, please tell me, take each thing one by one, and then I will tell you which thing I have negated.
No, I merely wanted you to address my misunderstandings or clarify them. I am grateful to you for doing so.